Hey everybody, we're gonna try this one more time. We had some technical difficulty, but today I am back with Cab Franc and we are talking Cab Franc with Quartz Rock Vineyard in the Hudson Valley. So in New York, so we are talking East Coast Cab Franc. And I see that they are here, so I am going to invite them in. They are right there.
We did it.
All right, hello. You know, it's never, well, it's morning for me. It's never a morning thing unless there's a little technical difficulty. But
great,
it's all solved now, so we are
little
all
cold
good
out
to
here on the
go.
East Coast,
So
but
how
we're
are
doing
you
good.
two? Well, you know, I just was on the East Coast all last week, and I just flew back here last night. I got in at 8:30 at night, so I got to see a little bit of white. It snowed a little bit, and I was like, okay, yay, pretty snow. Goodbye, going back to California. So anyway, well, welcome. And I did show this beautiful label. So this is Quartz Rock Vineyard, and so it actually used to be another winery. You purchased it. So I'm sorry, Dan and Jacqui, right? And is it Heavens? It's spelled like heaven. All right. I was like, it's spelled like Heavens. What a cool name. But I didn't know. So you purchased this winery in 2020, and then you decided 2 years later that it was time for the name change, and you came up with Quartz Rock Vineyard. So tell us why Quartz Rock.
We had been trying for a long time to think about something that included, something about the land here, what made the land here special, something that was meaningful to us. So it took us a long time, as you said, 2 years before we finally came up with a name. One of the first things that we had discovered here was how much quartz is in the soil, and in particular, a couple of large boulders, quartz rocks that are on the property that our kids had found and thought that we found diamonds and thought that diamond mine here. And they've always been calling it the quartz rock.
They're so
and
sparkly.
So many of our wines have this beautiful flinty finish that we believe comes from all that quartz in the soil. So it was just something that we thought was beautiful and really tied in with the land here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the kids, we have 3 small kids, and they always say we're going out to the Quartz Rock, and they have it's not like we know where they're going, and so they let us know. But the wines here always have that flintiness. It's a special area to grow grapes, and whenever someone says you get the Quartz Rock terroir, it's what we're talking about.
Awesome. So you two are located on the East Coast in the Hudson Valley. So you want to just share a little bit about where the Hudson, I know where it is, but I don't know if everybody does. So if you can share a little bit of where the Hudson Valley is and kind of what your climate is.
So it's about 60, where we are right now, it's about 60 miles north of New York City. The prime grape growing region is about 60 to 90 miles north. It's kind of the sweet spot here, right? There's other grape growing regions, but we're partial to this area here. But we get the access to the Hudson River. We're on an east-facing mountain 700 feet, right? There's the larger mountains. It could be a hill to some people, but it's a great area to grow grapes. We're in the town of Marlborough. Marlborough has a deep history in growing grapes. And that's because of where we are, the location to the Hudson Valley, how we're on a mountain, have that east-facing exposure, and the soils here are great as well. So it's just a short drive up from New York City, 60 miles north, right above 84. You can get to it from Connecticut. We have people coming from Jersey, from Pennsylvania, and it's really a nice spot. That's not as far as the Finger Lakes. You don't have to go out and fight the traffic in Long Island. You're right here close.
That's a lot of positives, right? Not too far, not too trafficy, all is good. And I'm not gonna lie, it's beautiful there. So I've been there, I think it was maybe 3 years ago when the Cab Franc, the Hudson Valley Cab Franc Alliance, whatever, kind of started getting together. I was there, so it might have been more than 3 years ago, but we were at a winery, and I'm blanking on the winery, but it had a big barn, and all of the Cab Franc producers were there, and I was interviewing everybody for the podcast, and I got to taste all of these fantastic Cab Francs. So the Hudson Valley is all in 100%.
Yeah, it's a pretty good region, like, right?
This is your jam,
usually
right?
Think of New York wines, they think the Finger Lakes or they think Long Island. But Cab Franc, we like to think Cab Franc grows the best here. Why is that? It's not as hot as it is in Long Island. Doesn't get as cold as the Finger Lakes, and it's really the right climate for it. Right, the climate was different 20 years ago, and the way we've evolved to this point, it's in its sweet spot where we get the cool nights in the fall to develop those flavors. It doesn't get as cold because we have the Hudson River right here, but we still get warm enough temperatures to develop the grapes.
Hi, Gail.
Awesome, and
those are fantastic performers.
Gail Donnelly is saying hi, Jackie. And
so you had mentioned the hawk stickers.
I'm sorry.
Again, how we're part of the Hudson Valley Cab Franc Coalition, which was set up right around that time, in 2016, right? And you had been here in 2019 to really encourage more growing of Cab Franc in the region and really highlight the amazing Cab Francs that so many wineries are growing around here. Yeah,
and the coalition was actually started by the previous owners, the Glories, and Linda and Bob Pirro, but they had a particular liking to the Cab Franc grape for the reasons we already mentioned. So they took a lot of pride in that, and it's great that they're still involved in the coalition and driving things. Yeah. So next.
Yes.
What's that?
I did meet them. They're wonderful people, and they are Cab Franc fanatics. I said I did.
Yeah. So the next time we do the barrel tasting, you have to come out and do the podcast.
They're wonderful people. Okay. Last time they did it, I was actually I was still bi-coastal, so it was a nice, easy drive. Now there's going to be an airfare involved, so I need a little more warding going on. But so I have to ask you, like, what would possess you to just say, did you wake up one day and go, yeah, I think I'm going to buy a vineyard?
I like to tell this story.
How do we come about to buying?
We had been coming to Glory since 2006. And we've been coming to all the wineries in the area, but we in particular had really loved our experience here. We met Doug and Mary Ellen the first time we came. They had poured our tastings. They were pouring them in the barn. Like, it was very clear how much time and attention and effort went into the growing of the grapes here and into the quality of everything. And we said, like, that's the kind of place we want to have one day. But we thought one day would be closer to retirement. But in 2019, I saw on Facebook, of all places, that Glory Farm Winery was for sale. And I sent it to Dan, half joking, half serious, I believe. And he said, I'm calling them tomorrow. And we came up, we met with the Glories. It was about a year of due diligence and research and meetings. And this was our dream that we really wanted. And we thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's throw everything we can and see what we can do. Yeah.
So just jump in with 2 feet. There we go. Now, did you have experience in the past or winemaking experience in the past?
We dabbled. I had plans to open a brewery. Making beer, making wine are not the same thing, but fermentation science is something I find particularly fascinating. So there is a small parallel there. But I grew up on a small farm, nothing like this. It was more animal based, but so the I guess exposure to farming and what goes into farming, being that it's constant, right? You don't get a break, you don't get to rest a lot of times. So we were aware, maybe not 100%, but we are now of what went into it. Yeah, very quick, very down that go with
very
it.
quickly.
So it's actually having a farm and running a farm is a really good lesson in life, and knowing you can't get, you got to enjoy the highs. You can't get too high, but you can't get too low when things go wrong. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong in farming. So, yeah.
Yes. So what do you think is so special about Cab Franc? I mean, I know previously they did because they're part of the coalition and everything, but that doesn't mean that you are. But you're continuing the Cab Franc tradition there. So what is so special about Cab Franc to you?
I like to eat. And there's nothing better than a perfectly paired meal to me, right? You can sit around friends and family and you can have wonderful food, wonderful wine. And if you hit on the pairings with the food and the wine, it's truly an otherworldly experience. And if you ever had, and I'm sure you have, right? But you remember specific nights along the way where you had that pairing. It's just an exquisite experience. And Cab Franc goes excellent with a wide variety of food. It's strong enough to stand up to some strong meats, dishes, but it doesn't overpower some of the weaker dishes as well. So it goes across the board, whether you're ever having a hamburger, pasta, steak, whatever it is, right? We joke a lot. We have fish and we have Cab Franc. It's like, it doesn't really matter. We just have Cab Franc. And Cab Franc is versatile enough too, where you can have some of the deeper Cab Francs. You have it with a steak, but Cab Franc can be lighter too. And if you've ever had a Cab Franc rosé, it's delicious. Absolutely delicious. Maybe soon, but we do make.
Do you make a Cab Franc rosé?
Maybe.
We
do make a Cab
Did we
Franc
get a little
iced
tip
wine,
of
though, and that's particularly
feature?
interesting that we're excited about. We just released it. We did a small amount last year. Yeah, so that's
Okay. And so now, when you're making your Cab Franc, explain to me how you're pulling that fruit in the vineyard. What are you looking for in terms of know
the Hudson
when
Valley
you
is
want
a
to
unique
harvest?
region.
What are you looking for?
In that it gets cold pretty quick. And the past couple of years in particular, we've had pressure from animals. So it could be just critters, raccoons, squirrels, chipmunks on the ground, birds. This past year, it was a lot of bird pressure because of the dryness. There wasn't a lot of moisture out there. There wasn't a lot of food out there because things were drying up and dying. So we lost a decent amount to just critters and birds. So a lot of times it's, oh my goodness, we're having, animals eat all our grapes. And it's really a balancing act between how much do we lose and what do we sacrifice in the quality of the grape. So it's really driven by that. It's very rare. I hope we get to the point where it's more consistent, where we can measure the acids in the grape, the sugars in the grape, the flavors of the grape, as well as the season and what's going on with the weather to drive things, right? But it's really more driven by the animal pressure and the critter pressure over the past couple of years. I remember walking out in the vineyard and there were turkeys literally sitting on the wires, just having fun with their, and it's, yeah.
Having their own Thanksgiving. Yeah, you eat us for Thanksgiving.
There were stories last year in the Hudson Valleys where entire vineyards were just decimated literally in 2 days, 48 hours, every single grape. So.
Wow. Now you can net for birding for birds, but is there anything else you can do? Like, how do you farm? Are you farming organically or biodiverse? Or are you using compound? How are you farming? And is there anything you can do that can help eliminate these critters? I mean, other than capturing them.
We have 3 kids, and we're going to have them run through the vineyards and scare all the animals.
What can you do?
Sometimes that's what I want to do when I see the turkeys.
That would work.
We practice IPM, so we're not organic. We have taken steps to research that. Being on the East Coast, being in the Hudson Valley, it's extremely hard to get to that point for a variety of reasons. There's been a number of vineyards that have attempted that, and they haven't gotten as far as they want. They've had some successes, but it's balancing between, at the end of the day, you need to have some grapes to make a product. And I think we'll get there eventually. But right now, in terms of protecting from critters and birds, yes, netting. There's also, we're exploring right now, lasers, which don't harm the birds. They're not harmful at all to animals. It just annoys them, so they stay away. But again, it's an investment into the vineyard. So it's a financial discussion. How much can we spend to put into the vineyard to protect our grapes? If you ask me while we're harvesting it, what we're seeing that we're losing out there, I might be more inclined to decision. But but that's really, I think there's no silver bullet. There's a couple of things that we could do. In a variety of different growers, they have their own measures, and everyone has their own recipe that works for them.
Yeah,
I had seen this thing which I thought was pretty cool. I have no idea how much it costs. I have no idea, but people say it works. It's like this robotic hawk type thing, and it's not like just it's not like one of those crazy things at the at the used car dealership, whatever. It actually like flies like a drone, I guess, or whatever. And people, it says it works because it constantly is moving where it is, and it's making sounds that are not, because the animals get used to, there's the cannons that go off, but they go off every 3 hours, or they go off whatever, right? Yeah. So the animals, you got to give them credit. They're like, that's not anything, right? They get used to it. But this hawk thing apparently is something that's so different at different times that it supposedly works. But I cannot help you with who made it.
Bird guards out there making those sounds. We actually have a couple families of hawks around, which are particularly, we want them here. They're beautiful, plus they keep away the animals. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, you said that your Cab Franc is on eastern exposure, right? So why do you plant, or why was it planted on the eastern exposure?
Well, so as soon as the sun comes up, they get the light on the grapes, right? So it dries off the dew. They get the light to develop the grapes. That moisture is something that's the problem. One of the problems here in growing grapes on the eastern coast, right? Just because it invites disease. If anything happens, especially when you get the animals in there, the birds that are pecking at the grapes, and it rains and the water stays there and it sits there all day and doesn't dry up, that's an invitation for all types of, little critters, right? Funguses, bacteria, they get in there and really degrade the grapes, and it's something that can go quickly through a vineyard in a matter of 2 or 3 days.
Okay. And then what about, because the Hudson Valley, East Coast, it tends to be a little cooler. What about those pyrazines that are in there? Now, I poured myself a glass of it, and there is pyrazine in there, but it's not like so out of control as if it's like a really cold, cool weathered climate Cab Franc. So what are you looking for in this glass? What if you could design your Quartz Rock Vineyard best Cab Franc, what are the qualities?
So I guess it's all really good wines are like a story, right? There should be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what does that mean, right? That can mean a variety of things, but you get the nose, you get the body of it, and then you get the finish in the end of it, right? So how do we cultivate that story? The previous owners, they planted 4 extra clones of the Cabernet Franc to get some of that depth in there, just because we have clone 1 and 4 other clones. The 4 other clones are really there to develop that body to get more fruit in the wine. Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's on the labels there, so you can see all the different clones there. There's about 2 acres of Cab Franc on the property. It's mostly clone 1, so you're typically going to get the traditional Cabernet Franc flavors in there. You get some of the pepper, the leather, the earth, the flintiness that we mentioned here that's particular to this property. But also in the real good years, you'll get more of the fruit. And that's something that we like, that we're partial to. And I think it just makes a better wine too. You get the plums, the cherries, some raspberries, some blueberry in it as well. So you get that depth of flavor from a fruitiness perspective, in addition to the traditional clone ones.
And so are all of these clones planted in the same, you're saying you're on the eastern mountain of 700 meters or whatever, or all the Cab Franc
all on the same farm, but they are in different locations in the farm. And it's interesting how just in several hundred feet, the differences in just the light exposure, just the water in the ground and how the water flows. It's very interesting. This particular property, it's been in agriculture since the 1700s. And you can see there's French drains all throughout the property. So, and those were built in the 1700s. So just the drainage in the soil has an effect on how the grapes develop. So we do have some of the younger clones on the south side of the property, and they tend to ripen a little quicker just because of the clones. Plus also it's in an area that's a little warmer than the north side. So it is interesting how those develop. And it's really two separate processes that we need to follow in terms of harvest, in terms of care that the vines need. Yeah, so I forgot how we got on this point. I just talked about grapes.
So let's go back, because you mentioned that you're talking about you also made an ice wine. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've never had a Cab Franc iced wine. So when you're harvesting for your Cab Franc here, okay, when you're harvesting for this, are you leaving the additional grapes on there? How are you choosing which grapes to leave for the ice wine and which grapes you're picking for your Cab Franc?
I guess this was an experiment. Let me just start with that. So we weren't exactly, we weren't really sure how to move forward, because when we made this, we were also trying to make a really nice bottle of red. And that 2021 was a particularly hard year to ripen the grapes. We had 4 rainstorms of 5 inches plus of rain between the end of August to the end of September. And that just, it was very challenging. So we took a blend of the different clones and said, let's try this and let's see what we can do. And, you know, we couldn't let the grapes stay on the vine. It just doesn't get that cold that quickly. And if we did anyway, there wouldn't be any grapes there anyway, because the birds would take them all. So what we did, we invested in a large freezer. We experimented with freezing the grapes whole, just the grapes themselves. And we tried to press them. That failed miserably. That was not that they thawed by the time we got to the press. So that didn't work. So we just pressed them. And we ultimately just iced the juice. And concentrated the juice that way. So yeah, it's not the traditional iced wine. It's an iced wine. But that worked. That worked as a first round. So we did that the first year and it worked. But it's still, you can still tell it's a Cabernet Franc grape. You get it in the end. You get the honey, but you also get a hint of raspberry, some cherry, some plum. And you get that in the finish, the traditional. Clone 1 really comes through in the end.
It does. And it's so interesting because it has the body and the sweetness that you would expect, but that slight earthiness in the finish just really makes it unique.
That's awesome. Now, you have the 4 different clones. So you have clone, well, actually this says 5. Clone 1, 214, 327, 332, and 623. So how, can you explain, and I know this is a tough question off of the top of your head, but can you explain what the differences between those are? And you did mention that you have to deal with them separately. So how do they mature compared to each other? And what do you think each of those clones
so good question. So
give to your
these clones are actually
wine?
selected by the Glories previously, and they did a lot of research traveling, and they selected them. Basically, we can go through each one. What they do, the fruit comes out more in a lot of most of these clones, right? So it gives it that different element than clone 1. Okay. The berries on I forget which, I think 332 and 214. The berries are a little smaller. And then the other two, 623 and 327, they're a little larger. So in terms of how you're managing the vineyard, in terms of the big, when the clusters close, that plays into the IPM practice before, and what needs to get applied to them. So to prevent that, to prevent botrytis getting in there, to prevent other fungus to get in there. So that is something that we do need to manage. Now, in terms of just taking care of the vines, they're similar vigor. The younger vines tend to, have a little more vigor, so we need to manage the canopy a little bit more. That's not really a problem because, we have the VSP system through here, which makes it easy if you stay on top of it and pull appropriately. Now, being that we are the east-facing a vineyard that we are, when we are going through and pulling some leaves, we have to manage some of the rows bend around a little bit. So we just have to be careful. They get some more sun during the day, so we just need to leave some leaves to get some cover, because we do get sunburn and we do get some drying up of the clusters that way.
Yeah, it does. I think that that's kind of a false belief
we've had
of the Hudson Valley. It gets hot there.
2 weeks above 90 degrees, which isn't, it's not great for certain grapes or certain fruit, but others it is better. And it's tended to get more extreme as, you know, the years go by.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we had, I think I put it out of my head. I think we had 18 days of 110 plus is what we had this vintage. So it was rough, you know, and the sugar levels go up, but they're false sugar levels because they're real sugar levels, but the phenolics haven't caught up to it. So it's, you know, all of that stuff. And that's like at the beginning when you were talking about, you know, what you learned about farming and, you know, whether it's livestock or, you know, botany or whatever, it's Mother Nature is in control. She is everybody's boss.
Right.
Because whatever she says,
I had to put a plan in
you
place.
Just have to react.
We've been doing it for 3 years now, and every year we're going to say the same thing. Next year is going to be better, and we're going to stay on top of this, and then it's going to be something else that she throws at us. So but that's the humbling experience. That's what I mentioned before, where it's, you know, you can never stop trying, but there's always going to be something that's going to be thrown your way that's going to be different. And you're going to fail in some regards, and you just need to be okay with that and make the best of it. It's been a nice life lesson.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now this label, man, you have got everything on this label. So credit to that. There, you know, you've got the harvest dates. So 2 days of harvest. You harvested this 2020 on October 9th and October 11th. You brought in 1.6 tons. You got the bricks. You know, you got everything. pH and TA. Everything is on here. So when somebody's looking at this label, they know exactly what they are going to get. Now, this is a lot of work. And how?
Well, that does end up being an issue, because if we, you know, like again, have a plan, and then it doesn't necessarily, you know, things don't always necessarily go to plan. We have had whole reams of labels that we've had to throw out and because of something that we changed. But it's, you know, we are really into this and the, you know, the numbers behind it and being able to talk about these things and what difference they might make in the wine. So we love the idea that our customers will be reading this and maybe have more questions or want to talk about something like that with us. So
yeah. No, we've had some people say, why would you ever do that? It gives away, you know, the secrets behind making this. And it's kind of like, no, there's no secret to it. This is, and it's really, it goes in line with what we're trying to do here, that we really take pride in growing the fruit, growing the grapes. And we're passionate about that. We're passionate about the winemaking too. And it's just being upfront and transparent. If I'm drinking a bottle of wine, I'd like to know all this stuff. I'd like to know what happened that year. What did they do? How was the fermentation? You know, what was the pH? What were the acids like? That way you can just appreciate the wine better, right? Like I said, a good wine's like a story, right? But there's an actual story behind the bottle too. And that just gives a part of it.
Right. I mean, most wineries have text sheets on their website. Yeah. This just makes it easier. I don't have to go hunt it down when I go look for it. It's right there. I can envision, like, you know how little kids read their cereal box as they eat their cereal?
We do that.
It's like,
we have a bottle of wine. It's a nice reminder. Oh, that happened. Sometimes it's not a nice reminder, but we do the same thing. It's remember this, remember that. Yeah.
And now you're using, see, I'm going to ask the question because it's on here. You're using yeast W15. So what Why that
I think it gives
what
it
is that doing for
a
you
depth.
that you
It
choose
brings
that
out some of the
yeast?
earthiness in the Cabernet Franc. I think that paired with the what we have here in the ground goes particularly well. It was one of these things where we've enjoyed the Cabernet Franc to this point with the W15 yeast. Why make a change? Maybe in the future we'll decide to pull off some and experiment a little bit more. But it's kind of like this has made a consistently good Cabernet Franc for us. Let's not change it. We will change certain things, but that's not going to be one of them. Yeah.
Right. And Cabernet Franc, certain yeast really work better with Cabernet when you're looking for certain things. And that's the trick, is learning which yeast does what. And if you've already got one that why break a wheel? The experimentation is great, but you don't want to experiment all over the place. Kind of focus in a little bit on what you're doing and then move on to another one. So these clones that are in here, are they fermenting separately and then you're blending at the end, or are you fermenting them
because we
together,
are so small,
because
we do what we can to keep them separate, just because there could be, along those lines of experimentation, maybe the wine develops, one clone develops really, really nicely, one maybe not so much for whatever reason, right? Hopefully it doesn't work out like that, but we can test them along the way during the fermentation to see, what, this one's developing it into a particularly nice wine. Let's keep it off to the side. That's not always possible. We have a limited amount of bins and fermentation vessels. So in the end, it does kind of get mixed in, but we do what we can to separate it. This year, we did separate several in different barrels. So I'm very interested to see how those different clones come out. Yeah.
And that's always fun too. Like, to see, you never know, maybe you'll have a single clone varietal, 1 year, one will just be incredible.
And hopefully we can keep the bird pressure down, awesome. The critter pressure down, so that we can have enough of the grapes to actually do it. That's been a challenge over the past couple of years, particularly in the one area with the two different clones. Yeah. That are younger for us. Yeah.
And are you netting? Does that do anything?
Oh, so the turkeys will go up underneath.
Do they poke their holes through the netting?
I mean, the first year that we were here, we were shocked by how the birds were just ripping right through the nets.
So the first year we took over, it was May, and we had 3 nights of 25-degree weather. And so we have peaches here, we have apples here, we have quince, pears.
But not that year.
Not that year. It killed. There were 6 peaches. Of the entire, we have 8 acres of peaches. There were 6 peaches total. They were good peaches, but
they were good.
But
oh my God!
The point is, there wasn't a lot of. No, but those are the ups and downs of farming. Farming's a lot like gambling. That's about finding more and more. But it's because there wasn't a lot of fruit for the birds to get. Usually, there's a certain percentage of all fruit that they would just get. They would burrow into the net, and they would just make a hole into the net to get to the fruit because they were so hungry that they would do that. Yeah.
Oh, you can use the fruit as deterrent.
So we
go
have
eat that
over
stuff.
a dozen different types of wine grapes here, soon to be more than that.
Know that.
But some of it ripens very early. So if all the birds and all the critters know, hey, come to Quartz Rock Vineyard, they have really good fruit here, they'll just come here in late August. We have Marquette that ripens in late August. They'll come here and they'll just stay here, right? So we just try and get them out of here. But the birds knew that they could get fruit here, so they just kept coming back.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That I love animals, but I get it. It's hard. It's hard. So you had mentioned that Cab Franc, you love Cab Franc because it's so food friendly, which is one of the things that I talk about all the time. But what is your favorite
here in Ulster County, on the other side of the county, there is an excellent farm. They have Wagyu beef. And even just like a burger from there with this wine. And we actually did it. We actually tried a pairing like that our first year. I think for me, that's it. A Wagyu burger from Catskill Wagyu in a cord.
Yeah, they do a nice job there. Yeah. I would have to say a nice prime rib and a bottle of Cabernet Franc would be.
Primary leaders. Yeah.
See, and right, just that there shows the diversity of Cab Franc, because the Wagyu burger is very different than you know, that prime rib.
So what?
Right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat either of them. But right?
Ooh.
What is my favorite food pairing?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it with anything butternut squash. I love, one of my favorite things is a butternut squash ravioli that is like in a butternut sage, a browned butternut sage sauce. That is my favorite food pairing. But what I mean, I'm a big cheese head, so it goes with so many different cheeses, and it just, you know, it just is so variable. It goes with like lasagna, you know, the tomato sauce. It goes with my butternut squash, you know, and pumpkin butternut squash, kind of the same thing, just a little less savory or whatever. But it's so dynamic that it knows when to perk up.
Yeah, we
totally mellow
agree.
out to make that perfect pairing, you know. So if somebody comes into Quartz Rock Vineyard and you say, hey, would you like some Cab Franc? And they're like, Cab Franc, I have no clue what Cab Franc is. How do you explain Cab Franc to them?
Yeah.
So you get a lot of people that and this is an educational opportunity, right? Which is exciting. Typically when people think of Cabernet, right? What are they thinking of? So there's so many different Cabernets, right? So it's an educational opportunity, which, you know, quite frankly, I kind of get excited about. Say, no, it's not Cabernet, it's Cabernet Franc. And here's you know, and there's a debate about this, right? But it's typically known as a French grape. But we can go through the lineage of it, but we talk about the property here, and I could point to the property and talk about, here's what we do with the Cabernet Franc here, how we harvest it, how we make the wine with it, point to where the wine is. And we usually try and offer some type of food or crackers or cheese or something with it to have that, you know, that pairing with it. But again, it's talking about, you know, it's great on its own with food. It's strong enough to stand up to some of the stronger foods, but you know, doesn't overpower the foods as well. And you know, some people like that. Some people love the Cabernet Franc. Some people say, no, I want a more heavier bodied Cab. And they say, okay, fine. Or, you know, that's not what this is. But we really try and push the food aspect of it, and growing it and pointing to it. I feel like if we can point to where the grapes are, it creates that connection with the people. It makes it more real, right? If you just have a bottle of wine, it's kind of like you can tell a story about it, but it doesn't connect with the people as much as if you say, this is where we harvest the grapes, that's where we crush the grapes. And that's, again, back to the label. And sorry, I'm pointing to a bottle that's in front of us as well. But we go through this as well, and it kind of makes that connection. It creates that story. People remember stories. They don't necessarily remember tidbits as well. But if you can cultivate a story behind it, then they do remember it. And then they will say, Cabernet Franc. Oh, Hudson Valley, Cabernet Franc. Yeah, I know that region. I know that grape.
Absolutely. And now back to the wine itself. It is a lighter style, which never shows up. Well, actually, it's actually showing up today. Like you can see, if I do that, right, you can still see well, maybe not, but you can still see through it. So it is a lighter style. So it's kind of a more Loire-esque in color. I can still see your writing on the back of the label. So it's a pale ruby. It does have the pyrazines, but I'm also getting raspberry and some cranberry and even a little blueberry. So it's nice because it's got that red fruit, but a little bit of that darker fruit also. So it does bring in quite a bit of, sense overload kind of oh, okay, I get this first, and I get this, and then I get this.
But then in the end, you get that. That's the clone one coming through in the end.
Right.
You get the leather a little bit. You get the earth. You get a little bit of green pepper in the end. That is the clone one coming through to let you know, yeah, this is still a Cabernet Franc.
Absolutely. And I think that that's important, that when somebody tastes it, you know, if they're tasting it blind, they need to know, yeah, that, you know, this is a Cab Franc. Okay. So, well, I want to say thank you for sharing your wine with me, sharing your story. I do hope that one day when I'm back on the East Coast that I get to go up there and see you guys and to visit Quartz Rock now. You know, if somebody, I saw that you do actually do tastings, and you were talking about the tastings. So if somebody wants to visit you.
Yes, we're open year round on weekends.
Are you only open
but
on
we do
weekends?
tastings
Did I
all
read
year.
that correctly?
And on our website, quartzrockvineyard.com, we have all the information there, and we're constantly keeping that up to date.
Okay. And they are dog friendly people, so you know that's bonus points for me. They they are dog friendly. So and it does look beautiful there. So congratulations on the purchase. Congratulations on changing the name. I know that's not always an easy thing to do. All of that lovely paperwork and all the legal stuff. And you know, the funny thing is, people think it's really super easy to come up with a name, and it is not super easy to come up with the name. And then hi Sanruchi, hi Lafanice. But not only that, once you come up with that name, you got to make sure it's not taken by somebody else. So the names are getting narrower and narrower. But I love the story behind it. I love that, you know, the Quartz Rock, and that you're claiming, you're resting the name of your winery on the soil that is producing the wines that are being poured into people's glasses. And that's really what it's about, is the ability to taste that soil, taste that terroir in the glass. So I want to say thank you very much for sharing your 2020 Quartz Rock Vineyard Cabernet Franc. And I saved a little so I can raise it and face lancha. Oh, see, the other thing is, I like doing these because it's day drinking.
That's right. It's not 11 o'clock here. Yeah.
Not even 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Stay warm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Rock Cabernet Franc around.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.